Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the absolute, you have the deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders. Look! Up in the sky! It's another compendium! That's right, I am the Uncanny Omar. You are watching Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and the Superman Summer is the, I guess it's called the Summer of Superman. Did it backwards. Sorry about that. That's on me. Anyway, today I'm going to give you an overview of the Superman, the City of Tomorrow compendium from DC Comics. So, up and away. And welcome back, everybody. So here we have our latest compendium and our latest Superman collected edition, and that is Superman, the City of Tomorrow. This was one of my most wanted Superman omnis, and surprisingly, they went the compendium route. And I say surprisingly because the stories in here have been available before from DC Comics in 2 thick trades. So we have Superman, this image here by Ed McGuinness, and the City of Tomorrow compendium right there. The DC logo down at the bottom. And then, of course, who is taking the top billing? And that is Joe Kelly. This is the beginning of the Jeph Loeb and Joe Kelly era, actually. Mark Schultz, Doug Mahnke, Ed McGuinness, and Glenn Whitmore. And the spine of the book right here. Superman, the City of Tomorrow compendium. Interesting that they're going with a purple color there, and then the back of the book telling you a little bit about the book itself. And the retail price of this one is $59.99. Now, as I've mentioned, this has been available before in 2 thick trade paperbacks right here, and these were printed, I want to say using matte paper stock almost, but to kind of give you an idea of how big this book is, all of this is in here, plus a couple little extra things. So I'll go over the contents here in a second. But yes, both of these, which I think these were $39.99. So $40 each, the equivalent of like $80 for both of these, can now be found, same content, plus a little more, in this book for $59.99. And besides, these are unfortunately out of print. And I'll do a little internal comparison here in a bit. But yes, let's go ahead and open it up, talk about what's collected in here, check out the type of stories in here, and this artwork, and then see if there's anything extra in the back. Okay, let's go ahead and get this compendium opened. So Superman, the City of Tomorrow compendium, and over here are your credits. This is a new era. If you've seen my Superman reading orders, you know that this takes place after the Triangle years. And of course, the Triangle years have not been fully collected in any kind of format. I mean, we're just starting with the omnibus format. There are some trades in between those omnis and this, but just go and check out my Superman reading order if you want to know where this fits in, because I did the 2 City of Tomorrow trades. This actually has a lot more pages, and I'll talk about what exactly is included in here. So again, a new era with Jeph Loeb kind of kicking it off. Joe Kelly, Mark Schultz, J.M. DeMatteis, and Stuart Eminem actually supplying a lot of the plot, with Mark Miller doing his scripts, Jay Farber, and then over here your pencilers. Ed McGuinness doesn't come until about like a third of the book. He comes in, Doug Mahnke kicks it off, but actually it's Mike McCone that kind of kicks off this era. You do have artwork in here from Stuart Eminem and Duncan Rouleau, and also Mike S. Miller and Paul Pelletier and Jeff Matsuda doing some stuff over there at DC. Inkers over here like Marlo Alquiza and Tom Wynn. And then your colorists like Glenn Whitmore and Tanya Hori, and letters like Richard Starkings and Ken Lopez. Again, this image by Ed McGuinness and the cover by Ed McGuinness, but he doesn't come in until about a third of the way. Table of contents, you do have a table of contents, and there are page numbers. They'll tell you when the book was actually, no, they don't tell you when it was originally published. They usually do. But we are looking at the years like 1999 to 2000, because we are going to see a book in here that will tell you, man, this is really getting ready for Y2K. As a matter of fact, the book is actually called Superman Y2K. So what what is collected in here? Collected in here is Superman 151 to 159, Adventures of Superman 573 to 581, Action Comics 760 to 768, Superman the Man of Steel 95 to 103, Superman Y2K number 1, Superman Metropolis Secret Files number 1, and then a story from Secret Origins of Supervillains 80-page giant number 1. The book has 1,040 pages and retails for $59.99. Now, this book, like I mentioned, has 1,040 pages. These two books over here, the trade paperbacks that came out previously, have a total of 968 pages. So what this really has is those secret file issues, which I think are a lot of fun because they kind of keep you updated as to what the status quo are of these characters that are going to be throughout here. So what is this about? Why do we need to reboot Superman? What's going on? Why is it relaunching? Well, there's no new number ones, right? So it's not really a reboot or a relaunch. It's more of a bringing it back to the basics and no longer the triangle era where you had to go and be forced to buy each and every one of these issues. And that is something that you get out of here, though. It's a different type of era for Superman because it feels like sometimes the writers weren't really talking to each other, specifically when they're building up for a big event. Now, we are going to see a lot of Lois and Clark in here. That's something that I've always seen people really enjoy about this era, is that it brings it back to the humanity of Superman. No longer like going off into space and having space adventures and being separated from Lois, even though you know that's bound to happen. But at the very beginning, they swore, okay, we are going to bring it back to the basics. It's going to be a story about Lois and Clark, and Clark just happens to be a superhero. So immediately we kick it off with the first appearance of Mongul, or not the first appearance of Mongul, but the return of Mongul. But is it really Mongul, or is it someone else that could be behind all of this at the very beginning? Now, the stories have been previously collected, not just in those, but I used to have these white trade paperbacks that were like volumes 1, 2, 3. I think there were a total of 6 of them. I remember No Limit being the first one. Those were a mess. Not because they fell apart, not because one of my volumes was printed upside down, but because they were mapped so poorly. They were mapped like, oh, here's a little bit of an idea as to what's happening during this time in Superman. But in order for you to find out where the rest of the story takes place, you got to go and buy the single issue. So it was almost like a, hey, here's a little bit of a taste of what Superman comics are like during this era. Some trade paperbacks were more complete than others. Some were just missing issues, and like there were months in between. It just didn't make any sense. By the way, Stuart Eminem during this time, his artwork is a lot different than what you're used to if you're familiar with his art in the pages of something even like Next Wave or Ultimate Spider-Man. His art through this era is more like his Final Night art. So you are going to see the Daily Planet play a part through here. So Jimmy Olsen and Perry White. This is Doug Mankey's art. I love Doug Mankey. I think he's one of my favorite Superman artists. There's just something really cool about his art. You are going to see other characters that we hadn't seen in a while. Like John Henry Irons and his niece Natasha, of course, that is Steel, and Superboy. All of these supporting casts that we've seen in the past will come back during this era. But this is, like I mentioned, bringing it back to the basics. And the way that this is mapped is exactly how the big thick trades were mapped. You'll get a little bit of a story arc, and then it'll continue. Sometimes it'll skip a couple of issues, and then it will wrap up, and then you'll get another story arc, kind of like in chunks. Most of the time, because it's the same writer and the same artist working on the book, you can tell when a story arc wraps up. This is Mrs. Superman right here. And who exactly is she? Is she another daughter from Krypton? Or is she somebody else that is faking being from Krypton? We do have the Justice League appearing through here. This is during the time when Joe Kelly was actually writing the Justice League. Or it was called the JLA at the time. Now, I think, yes, this is when Mongul shows up and takes Superman up into space. And this is the first appearance of Imperiex, who will play a huge part, actually the biggest part, in the Our Worlds at War, which is getting an omnibus format. That's why I'm surprised they decided to go with a compendium for this era and not make it a omnibus, because we're getting it's like a prelude to the war that has a lot of stories that focus on these characters, like the status quo of Lex Luthor during this time, Imperiax, who he is, a couple of other characters that you're just going to have like random appearances, and then we'll finally get the Action Comics, Superman, and Man of Steel ongoing. But surprised that they decided to do this in a compendium. This is the return of the Eradicator. He is, however, a little bit different right here during this time. Lex Luthor Luthor, sorry. During this time, he's actually playing this role of savior to the city, and it will lead into something huge that happens around the year 2000. Because at the very beginning, in order to save the Daily Planet, and this isn't much of a spoiler, but it is revealed that Lois Lane, of all people, is making a deal with Lex Luthor. And that deal is, like I said, in order to save the Daily Planet. But what is Luthor getting out of this? I keep going back to Luthor because of Gene Hackman. So yes, Daily Planet is back in business, and there's a secret deal between Lois and Luthor, and of course, Mongol Sun. That's who it is. It's Mongol Sun. It's not the original Mongol. Ends up coming to pick a fight with Superman, because that's just the way it is. And just in time for Y2K, it's also the reappearance of Brainiac. Now, this is another Brainiac that will be upgrading. This is Brainiac 2.5 that will end up crash landing on Earth, and we've seen that character before. However, this time he is going to be upgrading to a Brainiac 13. Yeah, he's skipping some upgrades. He's going from 2.5 all the way to 13, baby. So that's nothing but trouble for Superman. And again, no Ed McGuinness artwork yet. And finally, we do get some Ed McGuinness stuff in here with this issue, which is the cover. It's a great cover. And one thing I will say about Ed McGuinness's art, I think, to me, it was the perfect choice, especially when you're Jeph Loeb writing the stories, and they've worked together a lot, right? Like we've seen them work together with Batman Superman, we've seen them work together with Red Hulk, and this really feels like if you were watching the cartoon and coming to read the comics, this is as close to the cartoon as you were going to get in a comic book format. Of course, they were experimenting art back then with computer graphics. But yeah, I think he draws a perfect Superman from like the 30s mixed with the cartoon and a little bit of that anime flair that, was very popular in the late 90s and early aughts, and to this day still is. Now, don't worry, he's not back for too long. Like I said, a lot of these writers weren't really talking to each other, so it's like one story arc and then the next time you're like, oh wait, wasn't he turned into Superman Blue? I really want to read that era in collected editions, though. We had one trade paperback of Superman Blue, and that was it. And I was really disappointed that that's all we got, because I don't know. I just, I never finished reading it. I only had some of the single issues, but a lot of people hated that era. I was leaving comics when that era was coming around, so I never got to read it fully. I got to read the beginning. I never really got to read. No, I did get to read in single issues when I ended up getting them. When he split into two Superman, you had the red Superman and the blue Superman. Man, comics, you gotta love them. And then everything gets, remade and revamped. All right, so we're seeing a lot of familiar characters. You saw Ma and Pa Kent. You saw some of his supporting cast from the Daily Planet. You saw Steel and his niece Natasha here. You saw Superboy, Supergirl. Now, what about villains? Like, we've seen Brainiac, we've seen Lex Luthor. We've got a new villain in Imperiax, and then we have the return of other villains, like Parasite. I really like the way McGuinness draws Parasite. There is a story in here with Wonder Woman, where Clark and Wonder Woman end up getting zapped into this war that is taking place in another dimension, and they've spent years there. And I think at one point it's like hundreds of years, and Wonder Woman is like you know, offering her service to a wounded Superman, because they both haven't been intimate with anybody since they've been trapped on this planet. Superman's reaction to Wonder Woman is the only thing I don't believe in that story that could happen. I believe the dude can fly, that bullets can bounce off him, but turning down Wonder Woman is one of the hardest things for me to ever believe. This is a really fun issue right here. This is Joker and Harley Quinn coming to Metropolis. This is before the Emperor Joker storyline, which will be, I'm assuming if they continue, these kind of compendiums will be collected in a compendium like this. For a while, Lois actually goes missing. So remember when I said they wanted to go back to the basics of reuniting them? She goes missing. And we have this Lois right here that is super strong, but who exactly is she? And if she's not the real Lois, where is the real Lois during this time? Well, I will let you find out by reading the book yourself. And I do really like this issue right here. Let's go back to, yes, this right here. This is from Secret Files and Origins, and it's not collected in the 2 trade paperbacks that I showed earlier. Where is she? Sorry, Superman, we got to put a pause on that to talk about these 2 awesome characters during this time. The right and left hand to Lex Luthor were Hope and Mercy. These 2 characters right here, and they are just so freaking awesome. This particular issue focuses on them and kind of like they're a day in the life of these 2 characters that have to work with Lex Luthor and what they really think of him, while still showcasing Superman because he's out there looking for Lois. Now, Superman, while looking for Lois, does end up getting kryptonite poisoning. So it's like this storyline that's called Critical Condition. And it kind of wraps up what these issues are in here that are collected in this particular collection. And let me just show you. Does he find Lois Lane? Well, of course he does. Does he get the help of his super friends? Yes. This is an awesome issue. This is Duncan Rouleau, I think. Oh no, it's Carlo Barberi doing this issue. So yes, part of the Critical Condition where Deathstroke shows up. So while he is hurt, while he can't fight, it's up to the super friends to help him out. And you're going to see a lot of guest stars through here from the entire DC universe. This volume actually ends on a bit of a cliffhanger that made me wish they would have done a volume 3 of the City of Tomorrow trades. So I'm hoping that they'll continue this in a compendium format. And then let's go to the back here to showcase some more stuff from the Secret Files and Origins. And you have a little bit about the Eradicator, Hope and Mercy, La Encantadora, who was in the first story arc, the Prankster, Rose and Thorn. So in case you're not familiar with these characters, this will tell you, you know, a little bit about them, when the original Brainiac first appeared and when Brainiac 13 first appeared, which is in this collection. Just like this is in ImperieX's first appearances in this collection. And that character will play a huge part in the storyline to come, that is Our Worlds at War. And some sketches and designs for the city, because we are talking about the City of Tomorrow. And this is the Man of Steel. Oh, these are the connecting covers by Phil Jimenez. These are the trade paperbacks. I'm so glad that they collected these. These are the trade paperbacks I had. And I think this one here was actually upside down. And like I said, they had missing issues. This is a better way to collect everything. Now, as far as the binding, it is glued binding. And again, the book has a total of 1,040 pages. Okay. So, what is it about this era that a lot of people really enjoyed? For me, nostalgia was the reason that I love the Triangle Years. I think the Triangle Years is perfect. The way that they mapped the books, the way they made you get the books. This era is a lot different because this features the character of Superman, his supporting cast, but it's a wide-ranging book encompassing of many, many different writing styles and artistic styles for the Superman character. And I think that's what makes it work, and also what is the flaw of the book. Because while you're enjoying a particular story arc, you may jump into something else for the next 2 issues that you're like, oh man, this is really dragging, or I don't really like the artwork in here. But it really is a little bit of everything. So if you don't like one particular story that's going on, or one single issue, or the art on a particular issue, well, you're in luck, because this entire compendium has so many different artistic styles throughout it that you just got to go ahead like 30 pages and get through that story. But to me, that's the thing. I always tell people that watch my show, it's like, how do you appreciate the good stories if you don't go through the bad ones? Does that mean that we have to have 4 Omnis of the Clone Saga? Or one more day in a gallery edition? You're damn right it does, because everybody should experience it for themselves. But that's it. That is Superman, the City of Tomorrow Compendium. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this compendium, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and the quick comparison to the previous releases in trade paperback. And let me know in the comments down below if you are picking up compendiums, if you're saving the room and on your shelf for an omnibus release, or if you have the trade paperbacks and you're keeping those and not upgrading to the compendium. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.